Welcome, and thanks for joining me today on Mortgage Manager Playbook, a podcast for sales leaders who want to improve their team's sales performance and originate more loans. I'm Pat Sherlock, your host. Today, we're going to talk about the important topic of breaking free of being a hostage to your sales force. This is such an important topic within mortgage sales. I have the perfect expert, Michael Hammond. Michael is well known within our industry. He is president and founder of NexLevel Advisors. He has his own podcast. He's written a chapter within the great book, Rethink Everything, about being a next-gen loan officer. Welcome, Michael.
Hello, it's great to be with you.
Well, this is an important topic, and we'll get to it in a second, but I really want to talk about, how did you get into the world of mortgage lending? And obviously, you have a law degree, so talk about all that.
All right. So while in law school, I was still doing sales and marketing. My undergraduate was in marketing. And as I was done with law school, I really didn't want to practice. I was looking for opportunities, and I saw an ad on Labor Day weekend. I won't say how many years ago, but let's just say 25 plus years ago. And it was a perfect combination of being allowed to apply both sales and marketing expertise and using my legal background. So I headed up a sales organization and headed up all sales, marketing, PR for a loan origination system. And using my law degree, I negotiated all the contracts. And I did that for almost 10 years. And as they say in the mortgage industry, once you join, you really never leave. You may take on different roles and positions. But that's how I got started in the mortgage space. And I've been doing it 25 plus years.
Well, talk about position. And again, I know you've had a well-known consulting firm. Talk about the issue of what challenges do you see mortgage lenders having, and what do you think they really should be focusing on that they may not be focusing on?
So there's a couple of things. I think the first thing is cost containment and understanding profitability is critical. You can't continue to lose money on every loan and think that that's going to be a sustainable business model for years to come. It's not. That has to change. And part of how that has to change is I think they really have to look at their technology. And when we talk about, being held hostage by your sales team, they're also hostage to a lot of their technology that the sales teams push. Who on earth should have 3, 4, 5 loan origination systems, 2, 3 point of sale systems, 3 or 4 CRMs, and then they wonder why the cost to originate continues to rise when all of this new technology should help them lower that. So I think that's another issue. And then probably the third one I would say is in a tough market, in a purchase market that a lot of loan originators have not dealt with in some years, their sales teams need additional training. They need training to really understand, how do I foster and grow relationships with the realtor side? How do I become a trusted advisor and really work with borrowers and understand instead of just hawking rates and a mortgage?
Well, I agree with that 100%. It's one of my favorite topics, that's for sure. But let's talk about this fintech world, because I find it really interesting when you're talking about having 3 or 4, even more than that, loan origination systems. It's almost unbelievable to believe that actually happens.
It really is unbelievable. But if you look at it, a lot of it first starts with acquisitions, right? There's always acquisitions going on. So you acquire a branch, you acquire another company, and you acquire their technology as well. And unfortunately, what a lot of companies don't do is figure out, okay, what is the best LOS for our situation and our company? But instead, they're kind of held hostage to the sales team, and we'll dive deeper on that. But they're even held hostage on the tech side by the sales team saying, well, this is the point of sale that we've always used, and this is what we've got to use. So they're like, okay, that branch, that division can use this technology. That branch and this division can use this other one that they like better. And the next thing you know, it becomes an unbearable task to try to manage all of those different systems, all of the different updates. And then what happens is you have very low user adoption for any one platform. You're wasting money on that. And if you would and leadership needs to step up. That's one of the problems. They're scared because, that division may not like us and that division may leave and we may lose a couple of the salespeople. Well, how much money are you losing day in and day out? And you don't gain any of the efficiencies you could by having one platform that everyone is on. Not only would it be more cost effective to manage and run, but you could also do much greater training. You could do a much greater job at getting user adoption, and everyone would have to buy in because that's the one LOS, that's the one POS, that's the one CRM that we've chosen to use. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get input from those other constituents. It doesn't mean you shouldn't reach out to sales and really find out which one's going to work best for your organization. But trying to maintain all of those systems does not make sense to me at all. And unfortunately, a ton of lenders continue to do that.
Well, that's a great jumping into our topic today to talk about being held hostage, because I agree with you. And of course, you and I both have been in this business a long time and have seen everything from the depositories to the independent mortgage bankers and so forth. And I would have to say that if you had to really describe the setup within our industry, you would have to say that most leadership is really held hostage. And it's reflected by the fact this is what I want you to kind of share, is it's reflected by the fact that we kind of accept high turnover, which the industry has had 40% for a very long time. And then the other side to it is this constant churning of people that ends up happening. So therefore, when we lose a top producer, our whole world kind of collapses because there's nobody to replace them. Share what you kind of see.
So there's a great quote by Jonathan Core, used to be the CEO of ICE Technology, and he
Sure.
said, in the mortgage industry, we have a huge propensity to use human spackle, right? When rates are low and things are good, what do? We throw a bunch of people at it.
Yeah.
And then when rates go up and volume is down and markets conditions are challenging, what do? We start cutting people. And it's a vicious cycle inside the mortgage industry that we think we can just improve volume by throwing people at it. And so we don't train properly. We don't educate properly. And then when you lose posture and you really don't take care of your people, and one of those top LOs go in a down market, you feel, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? How are we going to get that volume back? And part of the problem, go ahead, Pat, you were going to ask me something.
Yeah. Well, you raised a really good point. So talk more about it.
Okay. And I think what happens is a lot, it starts off with a lot of the people that are in leadership now, especially at IMB, especially at a number of the mortgage companies. They started their career in sales and they rose the ranks because they brought in a bunch of volume. They started producing. They brought on some of their buddies who were top producers.
Yeah.
So they have a sales mindset that they almost overcompensate for within the organization. We don't want to fail in the sales team. They're the economic engine that helps us grow. And so you have no posture, right? You're held hostage to those sales individuals, and then they start dictating their terms, right? And soon as that happens, everything is out of balance. Instead of everyone rowing in the same direction, everyone working towards the same goal, you have a number of the top producers only looking out for themselves, only on how can I make a buck? And I'm going to demand this technology. I'm going to demand these resources. And if you don't give me this, I'm going to go elsewhere. And unfortunately, because we've continued to give, we don't have any posture. And when they do go elsewhere and you lose that big chunk of volume, it's problematic. So that's, I think, where it starts is, how did we get to this point? We started throwing human spackle to solve issues when volume, because we didn't manage capacity properly. We didn't set up technology correctly. We didn't have full buy-in and full user adoption. And then we don't take the time, and you know this far better than I do, to train the people that we do have, right? The top producers are probably going to be top producers at most of the organizations they go to. But what's real, go ahead.
It's really interesting all that you were saying, because it is true that this has gone on for many years. And I do think And I'm curious about your opinion that it's obviously we've been saved by refi markets. And so this inefficiency is kind of built into our business, but it doesn't look like the refi market's coming back anytime soon.
I would agree completely on that. We don't have a crystal ball, but more than
Sure.
likely, the refi market is not going to come back in the near future at all. So, what it's forcing lenders to do is really start rethinking, right? That green book that's above my shoulder, rethink everything about being a next gen loan officer, but it's really rethinking how do we want to do mortgage lending? Rethinking what does our sales structure need to look like and how do we want to train and bring people on. And the key for a lot of organizations once they create those efficiencies is not just getting every single penny out of the top producer. It's that next rung of individuals who can close loans, have been consistent, not great, but have been above average producing results. And how can you get them closing 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more loans a month? What do you need to do? How can you leverage best practices? How can you use AI? How can you train and coach and mentor so that those people that are good can start becoming great, right? How can you get the average person to be above average now? And there's a lot of great technology that can help, but I think it starts from the top that you need strong leadership and you need a mindset of we're going to grow a culture, we're going to grow efficiency and profitability. And if you want to be on board and be with an organization that is going to be here for the long term, that is going to be fiscally responsible and sustainable, we've got a great opportunity for you. If you are only looking to make a quick buck, those aren't the type of salespeople we need. And those are not the type of salespeople that are going to always succeed in this new changing dynamic industry.
Well, we've talked about this topic for many years. I mean, it's not a new topic, but the inaction has really centered on a couple things. And I'm curious about also what you have to think about it. In my own prior getting into the mortgage business, I worked at GE Capital for many years, and development of the managers was all part of what was their growth strategy, that personnel in the manager role really mattered, and therefore they invested in it. But when you go forward to our world, the manager doesn't seem to be as important. They're not really invested in mostly, and producing matters, and so therefore we haven't gotten out of this cycle. So how do you see the breaking free of investing now in the caliber of managers that we have?
That is a great question. And I think
Sure,
one of the hurdles is, again, how did that person become a manager? Not
sure.
because they're great, necessarily have great people skills, not because they know how to train and coach and mentor and get the best out of people. How did they get promoted? They were a top producer, right? And we can see examples across all types of industries and
Right.
walks of life, right? Let's use Wayne Gretzky, one of the best hockey players of all time. Terrible hockey coach,
Yeah.
right? And so the mistake we first make is thinking that because somebody is a top producer, they're going to be a great manager. Oftentimes, that's not the case. They're not great managers. The second part of it is we don't invest time, money, resources to develop managers.
Mhm.
And part of that lies in historically, the mortgage industry has been very transaction focused. Get the Smith file in, get the Smith file out, Hammond file in, Hammond file out. And we don't focus on building and fostering relationships. If you started focusing on relationships, you would understand the critical importance that a manager will have in not only fostering the relationships with their sales team, but also then showing, coaching, and mentoring how those salespeople can foster and grow relationships with their borrowers. The average borrower is going to get 7 to 11 loans over the course of their lifetime. And right now, 85% of the borrowers that get a loan do not go back to their original lender. So loans 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11,
Mhm.
you don't get. And if you just look at numbers, that's anywhere depending on what the average home price is you're going off of. Let's say we use 400,000. That's 4 million on just that one borrower that you lost out on over the course of their lifetime because we didn't focus on building relationships. We didn't focus on managers, and most of the managers are only tied to an origination volume and revenue goal.
Right.
They're not compensated on, and what you track and what you compensate is what people focus on. If it's only about the dollar and get the transaction in, no wonder we're very transaction focused, and the fact that we don't spend time coaching and mentoring people. If we change that and flip that around and said some of your compensation is really tied to how many people did you bring along? How many other leaders did you develop? Those are the people that should get compensated the highest in an organization because they're developers of people. In my opinion, those are the people that always have a place within an organization.
Well, you raised really the key part, which is I consider the investment side. And the investment side, they're more apt, and certainly you see this also, they're always getting a new loan officer origination system, not only the ones that have the 4 or 5 systems, but every lender you talk to, this is always going to be this a solution to selling. Problems that they would have. And so I find it almost mind numbing that they will go and spend, let's say, 250,000 on a loan origination system, but there's really no training. The training side and the coaching side, the things that you're mentioning back, it's kind of left to the loan officer to go out there and fund their own training. Who ever heard of an industry that is large as this industry, that you really outsource the development of your people to kind of on their own? And this has gone on for a long time. And the only good news I think about the current market is that if you're not going to have refis to save you, then this is what our business is, and therefore you need a change in directions. Any thoughts?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And when you leave it to the individual who's busy trying to get deals in the door, are they
Right.
going to spend a lot of time studying and researching their POS or their LOS? I mean, think about it. Every one of us has one of these smartphones, right?
Sure.
Most of us only use about 20% of its capabilities at the most. And that's something we all use each and every day
Day.
as a critical tool. What do you think those numbers are for a POS or an LOS? They know the 5 or 8 things that they need to do to get a loan in,
Hmm.
but they don't really look at it and say, how much more efficient could I be? I've taught a number of classes on how to master the art of manufacturing a loan. And it's amazing on how many people don't even really understand all of the steps that they have to go through, how much time they spend, what resources they go through. They don't even quite know the systems that they go into. Same thing with leadership. We talked about leadership. Leadership doesn't even know most of these systems. And then they're shocked when their people are not using them. So first of all, we have to change the mindset of training and coaching is a cost, a fixed cost that is just a sunk cost, and we're never going to get it back. That's terrible. When you start
Yeah.
looking at it and say, just like we're going to invest in technology, why don't we invest in training and coaching of our top producers, of our team, sales team, of our marketing staff? The skills that you need to be successful lending today are a lot different than they were 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Hmm.
But we've done very little to train our people on that. Right. And I don't just mean every once in a while a lunch and learn, or, the
Hmm.
famous, we do a 10-minute stand up every day.
Yes.
Awesome. That's not what you and I are talking about, of
No.
really understanding and going into a specific methodology. It amazes me. A number of LOs don't know how to effectively do a discovery call. They
Yeah.
haven't been taught that. They don't know the right questions to ask. And that's why they get hammered in a purchase market, because all they know how to talk about is rate.
Right. Yeah.
Talk about and understand the debts and all of the other things. And why is that borrower looking for a home? Are they looking to upsize? Are they looking to
Hmm.
downsize? Do they need more bedrooms? Do they need a different school district?
Hmm.
Do they have a retirement fund that is good? There's so many factors that if you took the time to foster and grow the relationship and understood those, people will see you as a trusted advisor instead of a salesperson just hawking a mortgage.
So we've talked about some of the challenges and how it basically has certainly evolved, and this is what we see in our business. So, what are the things, the bright spots? Are you seeing a recognition at the senior management level that now's a great time to change? I mean, I have to say, frankly, I talk to lenders every day, just like you, and I still see really kind of the old thinking in place, as if the refi market, whenever the Fed reduces rates, that's when we're going to do our volume. What are you seeing that shows some, like, maybe light at the end of the tunnel?
So I'll first agree with you that there's still a lot of the mindset. I saw a post today, somebody saying, it looks like September may be the date for refis, and they think that's going to be the magic button. It's not. But there are some bright spots. What I see is just like if you look back, right, 2008 when the market crashed,
Mhm, mhm.
the top lenders at that time are not the top lenders today.
Right.
What that did was it created an opportunity for some lenders to lean in and start looking at technology different, start looking at how they ran their organizations differently. And those are some of the biggest producing lenders right now. I think the same thing is starting to happen where some lenders are leaning in. I've had a number of discussions, a number of lending CEOs have reached out to me recently and said, Mike, what does the sales and marketing team of the future look like?
Mhm.
This is how many people I currently have in my marketing department or on my sales team or on my sales support team. With AI and with all of these new things that are happening, do I need that many people? Has their skill set, does that need to change? Yeah,
Right.
on a marketing side, used to be a lot of the creatives. You still need creative. I'm not saying you don't need some creatives, but if you don't have people that understand data and analytics and
Mhm.
statistics and sentiment analysis and all of those things, you're going to fall behind. So the bright spot to me is it's not happening as quick as we'd like, but some lenders are leaning in and realizing this is an opportunity now to really restructure, reorganize my business, get much more efficient with my technology. And if and when the market turns, I think those are the people that are going to gain significant market share and, more importantly, really own the customer and borrower relationship.
So, but when you look at the lenders, and certainly what I still see in the space is that the lenders are still viewing that the development of the personnel, all of the things that you're talking about, is a cost center that ties itself to the branch system, the decentralized approach to how we originate loans, which raises the question, the viability of that system. Because I think at the end of the day, the corporate component is really, well, okay, we're the manufacturing side, they have to do everything else, and we charge them for it, and that's pretty much the dominant strategy that most lenders have. If you want to have a corporate culture, or you want to have a corporate sales strategy and philosophy that is throughout the organization, it needs to be centralized at the corporate level, but that isn't what you are currently seeing, and that's never what it's been. It's always been the same way that, okay, the branch people are going to pay for all of this. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I think some are going to continue to kick the can down the road for as long as they can. And you're going to see some of
Sure.
those organizations shut the doors. Let's just be honest. You can't year after year lose 500, 600, 1,500, 1,800, 2,500 alone and
Hmm.
expect to be in business for years to come. That well is going to dry up. And I think the ones that are starting to see that are now starting to approach it and understand you can still have a branch model. Doesn't mean that the branch should have to absorb all of the cost, right? Because there are advantages with the branch model in the sense of they can be very local and hyper localized. And that can be a huge advantage when you're fostering and trying to grow the relationships. But more than anything, leadership from the top down has to understand that the market is changing and they have to change their organizational structures. They have to embrace development of people. How do we develop our managers? How do
Hmm.
we embrace the technology and not just spend technology on the shiny new object, but
Hmm.
really understand, well, we already have this LOS and we're only using 15% of it. Before we go out and buy another one,
Yeah.
Why don't we really take the time and understand? And I think that awareness and willingness to say, how are we manufacturing a loan? How do we sell to current borrowers? What have we done in the past to foster and grow relationship with realtors? If you asked a lot of lenders today, walk me through that whole process, walk me through each one of the steps, most of the leadership would say, I really don't know them. That's a
That's
problem.
a big one. Uh, but my view is, and I'm curious also in your thoughts, is that why isn't the setup, and again, I've been in the business a very long time, why isn't the McDonald's setup? Yep, you have local franchises, but they have to operate under a certain methodology. And this is the hamburger has to be cooked a certain way. But that isn't really, we still have an approach of, well, and it's certainly it ties together with recruiting, where we'll recruit somebody and we'll just, oh, okay, well, you'll do it your way. And then the next branch does it another way. This whole decentralized, not having it organized, and hoping that things are going to actually move in the right direction seems really really a faulty strategy. Any thoughts?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the whole premise of our discussion of being
Mm-hmm.
held hostage to
Sure.
that sales team. When you're held hostage to the sales team, when they say, I don't like that LOS, this is the only one I use. Oh, okay. You can keep using the one you're using. Hey,
Yeah.
this is how I do it. I have an LOA and I have these other 3 team members, and I'm going to keep using and doing it the way I've done it. Okay, as long as your volume's up, we don't care.
Right.
That's a
Right.
problem. When we're only focused on volume and we think that refi will save the day and that
Right.
cyclical cycle will come back sooner than we want, then we just keep doing what we've been doing. Well, guess what? The refis aren't coming back, at least not anytime soon for most indications. And so the days of being held hostage to it, and I don't want to sound like we're bashing loan officers or anything like that. I
Yeah.
think it's
Right.
more of a leadership issue. The
I
LO
do.
should fight for the systems that they believe in and the processes that they believe in. But I think where there's that gap, where there's the big problem is leadership not really owning and saying, we're going to select one system. Here's another problem. You know this as well as I do. How many different commission structures there are throughout all these organizations?
Yeah.
Hey, here's what we're going to do for you, Bob or Mary. Don't tell anyone. And we're going to write this in. Really? To your point of each franchise, this is what the franchise gets. This is what they pay for
You're
these
right.
fees. This is the support they get, right? When you can start controlling costs and do it very effectively, then you, even in a tough market, you can be very profitable. But leadership, in my opinion, is the one who has to step up to the plate, and they have to say, this can't keep going on. We can't keep just burning money, have it come in one door and out the other, because we don't have these systems in place. We have 10 different commission structures. We
Hmm.
have all of these different technology tools, and we just let basically every branch do whatever they want to do. That's not going to continue to be successful, to your point.
Right.
But it's not really the loan officer's fault. It's not the
No.
branch manager's fault to say, this is how we've done it, or this is the system I like. It's because up from above, leadership has not taken the stance of, here's why we're going to do this. And part of it is they don't know the technology well enough. They don't know what will help and what won't help. They're too scared and held hostage by the sales teams to just say, well, we'll just let this branch run the way they're running and we'll let it run with that commission structure. It takes very strong leadership and
Hmm.
being willing to lose some of those top branches for the bigger goal down the road of having a cohesive model that is sustainable and profitable, right? Because we're very short-term thinkers in the mortgage industry.
Right.
What are we going to do this month? What are we going to do this quarter? And if something ruins my numbers for this quarter, God forbid, well, what if, yep, you're going to take a few punches to the face because you took a hard stance and you lost a couple of those branches, but come 6 months, 12 months from now, you're one of the most profitable in your region. That is the greatest competitive advantage you can have.
Well, it's interesting that you raised that because I want to talk about solutions. And the solution is, I think, one of the fallacies within our business is that they don't recognize that in other industries, in addition to our own, having a bench matters. So whether it's a sports team, whether it's any other vehicle, you're talking about this constant. If you're going to say, well, we're going to keep our model the same, but we need to have a bench. So when they leave, I already have the next player to come into place because I've developed them to my systems, to my process, and so forth. But the bench component is always being defined as other originators that are not necessarily the best producers, and we fill ourselves up with really ineffective personnel. And if you look at the data from Ingenious and all these other companies, 50% of the sales force are not doing any production. And
Right.
it raises the question that, well, all right, we got to change that whole strategy where we bring in a bench player. And my view is to bring in younger people. And this has been talked about forever. And I see it in the training classes all the time is the younger, not tied to what our business was. These people perform very quickly if they are developed, as you say. And that's the real key point. Are you going to commit to develop them? Most management teams say, well, I can't wait that long. I need to break even faster. What is your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more. Because again, they're very short-sighted of this is
Sure.
what I got to hit this month and this quarter. There is very little development of the people. And if there's very little development of your people, how could you ever expect to have a bench that is
Why
ready to
not?
come in? Whether if for whatever reason, not just somebody leaving, somebody could have a health condition, somebody could have to
Sure.
leave for all kinds of things. And you're shocked then that you don't have somebody who can step up.
Hmm.
But again, it goes back to the mindset of the leadership of,
I agree.
is leadership going to commit to the development of the people and invest in the people? And one of the things that they always argue is, well, these people aren't loyal and they're always going to leave, so I can't throw money
Right,
at it.
right.
Okay, and around we go, and you never develop them. They
Yeah.
leave, and we're in the same boat we've been in for the last 25, 30, 40 years in the mortgage industry.
Well, I agree with that one completely. I've heard that one a million times myself. So again, Michael, why don't you just give a couple strategies that you think could maybe really free these individuals, these lenders, into really redressing and not being held hostage to the sales force?
First thing I would do is very systematically approach, what are we doing in our organization? How do we get new business? Right? Who are the people that are successful and what are the methodologies and the path that they follow to close that business? Who are the ones that are best at, and really start analyzing and almost first take the people out of it and understand the processes, the
Mm-hmm.
methodologies, the
Mm-hmm.
systems. And when you start walking through that, if you were an executive and you sat with someone and they had to go into 6 different systems to originate a loan, you'd be like, well, this is crazy. Why the hell are we going into all these systems? Exactly. Why
Sure.
are we? So I think that would be the first place I would start is you have to do an assessment internally and actually take the time to understand how you bring business in the door, how you walk through all of the processes. And I think their eyes would be wide open to all of the different technology they're using and all the inefficiencies they have. Once you understand that model, you can start working on what are some solutions to streamline, create greater efficiencies, and start eliminating all of those redundancies. With that model, then it's a lot easier to be stronger and bolder with your culture of,
Mm-hmm.
here's how we're going to do it. Here's why we're going to do it this way. And then you got to lean full in on, I'm going to develop the people because we know this process and this methodology works. And
Mm-hmm.
we've got to do everything we can to get everyone on board. And that's where you start developing the right culture. That's where you start doing the right training. And more importantly, then you start having a wide bench and a deep bench. So if somebody does leave or if somebody does get promoted, you've already got people that know the way you need to execute and do the loan, how to use the right technology. And then the last one is you have to have people looking at,
Yeah.
what is the technology that is truly going to have an impact? AI is not going to go away. The quote that I love is, AI won't take your job. Someone who knows how to use it will.
Right.
And that could be a loan officer, that could be the marketing teams, that could be the ops people, it could be your developers that are creating systems. AI is not going to go away, just like the internet didn't go away. But you still need subject matter experts to prompt the AI and know how to fully maximize the AI. But unless you have an openness to some of that new technology, but again, instead of just throwing money at technology without understanding how it works, if you take that first step that I talked about, then you can strategically see where would AI fit in to help improve that system and methodology that we have.
Well, I'm excited about that because I agree with you 100%. And I do think it lends itself to the whole issue of, this is the time now to recognize that maybe some of the workforce that we do have can't make that transition. And so therefore, we have to recognize this is not a temporary phenomena. This is something that is going to be around, as you say, for a long time. And those that know how to use it are the ones that are going to be successful. And frankly, when you look at the top producers, they're using it.
Exactly.
It's true. Yeah. So, all right. Any other thoughts, Michael, that you'd like to share? I mean, I really think you've shared a lot today.
No, Pat, this has been a wonderful conversation. And I think we need to have more of these conversations. We need to keep pushing out the dialogue and the narrative so that these lending executives really rethink how they're approaching their organization and what do they need to do. And some of it's going to be tough decisions. Some of it is going to be unpopular decisions. But at the end of the day, if you want a sustainable and profitable lending model, those are some of the things that come with that leadership role.
Well, I'm with you on that. And certainly we'll have to have you come back and let's talk more about this because I do think it's time, the right time now to have new thinking. And I want to thank you for sharing all of your thoughts today. I think they were fabulous. And of course, I want to certainly thank our listeners. And certainly, if you would like to listen to other podcasts on important topics, go to patsherlock.com. Thanks again, Michael.
Thank you, Pat. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Mortgage Manager Playbook. You can catch up on all our episodes by subscribing to receive each week a new show. Don't forget to share this podcast with your friends and team members. If you're looking to increase production, call me to discuss my prospecting sales training program, Ramping Up Realtor Referral Sources. Check out my website, www.patsherlock.com.